Hey there, welcome. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for joining me again. You know I love you. If you're new to my channel, my name is Cerise Fairfax, and today on Wednesdays and Saturdays, we do story time. I live in the Dominican Republic and I love living here, and people from all around the world send me their stories, whether it's international or if it's right here from the Dominican Republic. So go ahead and sit back, put your feet up, get a drink, a bite to eat, and let's go. Hey, I'm a man. I am a good man. Right now, I'm 55 years old. I got to get this story off my chest. You know, when my wife told me she wanted to go to the Dominican Republic to, just have a family vacation, I thought, well, let me check it out. I'm Jamaican, so I usually go to Jamaica all the time. But I thought, you know what, something different's good. Our kids are grown now. It's just her, myself, and we're going to take two of our grandchildren. We were young parents and young grandparents as well. So I started to check out the Dominican Republic, and I found Cerise's story because she helps people come on vacation and relocate. And I thought, let me look at her channel. But then I dug a little bit deeper and I found story time. And I thought, wow, what a great time for me to get this off my chest. I am sad. I'm really sad. I didn't think my life would turn out this way. I'm a hard worker. I make good money. But I'm not happy in my relationship, and my children can see it, and so can my wife. They know I don't love their mother. They know I was just trapped in a relationship with her because we had kids young. She convinced me to marry her because we thought it was the right thing to do. You see, I come from a single parent household. My mom, she encouraged me to marry this woman as well. This woman, she came from a two-parent household. They seemed like the ideal family, and I thought, well, this is my opportunity to do it. Why not? But let me get back to who I really wanted to be. You see, when I was younger, I played basketball, and I met this one girl. She was 16 and I was 20. I know the age is going to make you raise your eyebrows, but this 16-year-old girl, she was like really mature for her age. She was smart. She read a lot of books. She was a writer. She used to always, be by herself. She had one friend she used to hang out with, but that wasn't really what she would do. Most times she'd come to the community center. She always had a book in her hand. She, would sit and watch the basketball games, and I started to like her. So even though I had a girlfriend, which was my bad, I went up to her and I said to her, hey, what's your name? She told me her name, and we started to talk. Now, of course, these were the days before cell phones and pagers, so I wasn't allowed to call her house because her dad was just very strict, and her dad wasn't about to let me talk to her on the phone. So there was no way for me to see her except when she was at the community center. I would plan my days around the community center just so I could see her. She was shy, and she never really had a boyfriend before that. She was a virgin, so she didn't understand how to date. And I wasn't preying on her. I just thought she was beautiful and innocent and very nice. And when I say innocent, I mean she wasn't like the other 16-year-old girls in our hood. We were in the hood, and we weren't just in a suburb neighborhood. We were in the hood. And a lot of the 16-year-old girls back in that day, they were doing things that were unbelievable. It was during the crack era. So I liked this girl. And I kept talking to her. And then finally she caught on that I liked her. And she asked me, did I have a girlfriend? And I told her no, because I was really in the process of breaking up with this other girl who was 17 years old and was a wild child. So I just didn't want to have anything to do with her. But when I told her I didn't have a girlfriend, she was like, okay. And then I asked her to start meeting me every day at the community center after school. when she got off school. She was still in high school. And so she did. She met me every day. We would talk for 15 minutes and then she would go home to do her homework. I started to really like her. And then it took us about a year. And then finally, after a year, she warmed up to me. Yep, I waited a year because she was that special. And I was almost broken up with that other girl. You see, that other girl wasn't allowing me to break up with her. She would show up at my apartment, she would knock on my mom's door, and she would keep knocking. My mom would answer the door, she would go in, and she always had like gifts in her hands. Be careful of people bearing gifts. You know, she knew I wanted to break up with her. Sometimes I would walk into my apartment and she'd be sitting right there. Like, that was just not cool. Anyway, back to the other girl. I really liked her. And after about a year of courting her, I took her to the beach and I ended up taking her virginity in the car. I know this doesn't sound good, but she was 17 and I was 21 at the time, and I didn't have a credit card for a hotel room, and we really didn't have a lot of time together. And she refused to go to my apartment. She didn't want to go to my apartment. She was shy and embarrassed that she was actually in a relationship with me. I told her, come, my mom will like you. And she wouldn't. So she was embarrassed to be in a relationship with me, but not just me, just in a relationship because she felt she was too young. But she really did like me. And so fast forward, after we were intimate, I don't know what happened, but she caught really deep feelings, a lot of deep feelings. And she started to tell me that, she feels like I have someone else. And she caught on to the fact that I was still ending the relationship I was in. And I kept lying to her. Then one day, the ex, she came to the community center. And my sweetheart was at the community center with me. We were sitting there, we were talking, we were laughing, and my ex showed up and she said, hey, and I don't want to say my name, but she said, hey, get over here right now. Who's that girl you're talking to? Now, my sweetheart, she was beautiful. She still is. She's actually famous right now. I can't say her name, but I'll get into that. And my sweetheart looked at me and said, who's that? And I said, oh my gosh. And I refused to get up and leave my sweetheart's side. But my ex came over and she's like, who's this girl you're talking to? And she looked at my sweetheart and she said, this is my man. I don't know who you think you're dealing with. And she said, get over here right now. And so in order for my ex not to fight my sweetheart, I listened like a fool. And I got up and I walked with her outside, but I walked out with her just so I can cuss her. I didn't want to cuss her in front of my sweetheart because I didn't want my sweetheart to see the bad side of me. Not that I had one, but I just didn't want to scare her and see me talking to a woman like that. So we got outside and I told her, you better get away right now or I'm going to call the police. And she's started to argue with me outside, and finally one of the people from the community center told her to get lost, and she left. It was too late. I went back inside. My sweetheart slipped out the back door and she went home, and I didn't see her for a good week. Finally, I did see her again. She was on her way home from school. I stayed at the streetcar stop. This was in Toronto, so, we have streetcars downtown Toronto. And I watched her get off the streetcar. She didn't see me, and I jogged up to her and I said, listen, please, let me explain. And she wouldn't. She said, no, when that girl called you, you went with her. You are her man. She said you were her man. If you didn't go with her, then maybe I would understand. But you went with her. And I tried to tell her I only went with her because I didn't want her to fight her. And she didn't believe me. Fast forward a few years later, I got her friend pregnant. Yes, I started to date her friend about 3 years after that. I didn't want to date her friend. We just kind of, had sex, and I got her pregnant. And my heart was broken because her best friend, well, it wasn't her best friend, but her good friend knew that I loved my sweetheart. And she would always ask me about it because word got around that we were dating back in the day. Word got around that I broke my sweetheart's virginity as well. But her friend, let's just call her friend the desperate wife. And so the desperate wife, she, would call my sweetheart and call my sweetheart on her home phone and say, "Do you like my boyfriend? I think he still likes you. Did he really break your virginity?" And my sweetheart would always deny it. Like, they were always talking, but my sweetheart was always denying the fact that we were intimate. Now, I always told the desperate wife that yes, we were. I never denied it. And I always told the desperate wife how much I still had feelings for my sweetheart. But in any case, because we still lived in relatively the same area, I was at a party one day and my sweetheart showed up. And I was like, whoa. And I had a couple of drinks, so I had a little bit of liquid courage. And I walked right over to her and I said, "Hey, you look good. How are you?" And she smiled at me and she said, "I'm good. How are you?" And I said, "Wow, I haven't seen you in so long." And she's like, "Yeah, I know." And I said, "Do you live alone now?" She was 21, I was 25. And I said, "Do you live alone now? I know you went through college and everything. I know you're doing really well for yourself." And she said, "No, I have a roommate." And I said, "May I come by your place, please? I just want to spend time with you and talk to you. I really want to explain to you what happened so many years ago." And she said yes. So after you know what? I was surprised, but we both had some drinks and we ended up kissing. And we stayed at the party the whole night together. And then we went back to her place. When we went back to her place, we made real love in a bed. I was ready to leave my desperate wife, even though by that time we had two children back to back. And my sweetheart, she felt guilty. She was like, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Do you love me?" She said, "Yeah, I do love you. I've always loved you. You broke my virginity." And I said, "Then give me some time to leave this woman. I don't want to be with her. I got caught up having two kids with her. Let me just think how I'm going to do this. Can I live with you? Can I move in with you?" And she said, "No." She said, "No, you got to figure out your stuff, do what you got to do, break up. You're not going to live at both places." And I understood where she was coming from. But when I went back home, because I did sleep out all night, when I went back home, the crap hit the fan, and the desperate wife was just so upset, and I was back in that reality. I was back in that negativity, and it was horrible. And I just wanted to leave everything. I just wanted to pick up and just leave her, but it was a little difficult because my two kids were there, and I did love my kids. And my mom was on my back, and her parents were on my back. And so I tried to explain to my sweetheart that I couldn't do it right away, but my sweetheart, she understood, but she still moved on. And I called her often as I could. One time I was at a payphone and I called her, and my wife followed me to the payphone because, again, remember, this was before cell phones. And my wife followed me to the payphone and she listened on the back of the payphone. She walked up behind it. She could hear me saying to my sweetheart that I love her. And I said, "I love you so much. I'm stuck in this relationship. I don't want to be in this relationship. I'm working for this woman I don't want, and I know that I can get out of it. I just got to pay child support. It's tough." And all of a sudden, the desperate wife said, "Who are you talking to? I know who you're talking to. You're talking to your sweetheart." And my sweetheart stayed on the phone and she didn't hang up. And the desperate wife came into the booth, grabbed the phone out of my hand, and you know how small a phone booth is. Well, she grabbed the phone out of my hand and she said my sweetheart's name, and my sweetheart said yes. And she said, "Why are you talking to him? What is he saying to you? I know you guys love each other." And my sweetheart said, "I think he just needs someone to talk to. Don't worry about it. We are not cheating. We're not trying to do anything." And my desperate wife said, "Hang up right now," to me, and I refused to hang up. And my sweetheart hung up. And that was the last time I spoke to her until I started to see her all over the TV. I started to see her all over commercials. And then I started to see her all over movies. I even saw her in a Hallmark movie once at Christmas time. The desperate wife came in and turned the TV off. I still look at her every single day. I watch all her Instagram, all her Facebook. I watch every single time I can get a chance to watch her, I watch her. I love her. I really love her. And I hope one day when my children are grown and I don't feel so guilty about leaving the desperate wife, I hope I can get back together with that woman. That sweetheart. She's single. She's always single. She's never really met anyone. But I know I can love her. My heart's broken. I don't even want to be around the desperate wife. The look of her, when she calls my name. We don't even call each other babe. We don't even call each other honey. It has taken a toll on my wife too, my desperate wife, because she even knows I don't love her. My desperate wife, she's always looking at this woman's Instagram as well. She keeps tabs on her too because she's jealous of her. She knows that my sweetie is a better woman. And it's not that my desperate wife is a bad woman. She's actually really all right. But I just don't love her, and I felt forced into being with her. My whole life has been about a woman that I don't love. I really want that woman that I felt like I wanted to be with forever. I just wish I could take back time. Wish I didn't sleep with her friend and get her friend pregnant and lie to her. But we were young. And I really hope that I can get myself together in a way where I can just leave my wife one day and somehow slip into the DMs of my sweetie and say, "Hey, can we talk?" Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to Storytime. Isn't that a sweet story? I mean, it is sordid, it's up and down, and some of you may say, "Well, that's not really sweet." Not at all. But I think it's sweet because the guy really did love his sweetie till this day. Somewhere inside of me, I do feel like I would love for them to get back together. You never know. I mean, I'm not wishing divorce for him and his desperate wife, but fate is fate, and it can never be denied. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Huge hugs, loads of love, big blesses. Treat yourself good today. Don't forget to be careful out there.